Hello everybody and welcome to Australia in 2002. I was in Australia in 2002. Yeah, it was cool. I liked Australia. And yeah, I was there, so we decided the Grand Prix is going to be on while we're here, coincidentally.
Look,
so let's go.
If you put anything down near the cat, he'll come and lie on it. But there you can see, I still have the t-shirt. Foster's, move your paw. Foster's Australian Grand Prix 2002. Hey, old kitty cat. Mwah.
Yeah, and a lot of Foster's was consumed. Saturday was rainy. The whole of Australia turned up to see this young lad here, Mark Webber. He was making his debut. So was this gentleman, Takuma Sato. He got a drive in the Jordan, and the Jordan got Honda engines. It was a pay driver kind of thing. But pay drivers back then were better than nowadays, or in recent times. They could actually do stuff. Yeah, DC took pole, then Ralf took pole, and then the Ferraris came out and spoiled the party. Schumacher taking pole, and then Rubens said, no, this year I want to win the championship. And so he went and took pole by 5/1000ths of a second. And then it rained. Poured with rain, really, and no one was ever going to go faster, so that was the grid. A few guys were disappointed to be starting lower down than they felt they had pace for, but they didn't get a good lap in the dry. And so I made my way to turn one, and I made myself comfortable with some Aussies, grabbed myself a Foster's, and waited for the lights.
You ready? Let's go! Fantastic start by one of the Benzos. Ralf Schumacher challenges Barrichello. Michael Schumacher's got a poor start, but Ralf is motoring into second place, and he hits Rubens Barrichello. Huge accident!
Yeah, that happened right in front of where I was sitting. Right in front of us. It was just carnage. It's just cars everywhere. There were 9 cars out of the race at the start, just straight off, from the beginning. Because you can see on the replay, you'll see Ralf maybe a bit at fault here, didn't really react to Rubens. Maybe Rubens moved and he shouldn't have. I don't know. That's a racing incident debate. But yeah, 9 cars were out of the race and they safety carred it. They should have restarted because guys had spare cars.
Going to see is Rubens coming over to take the line, and he pulls. In fact, no, that was. Yes, in fact, it was Rubens. He'd moved over to the right-hand side of the grid and started to decelerate for turn 1 and just completely caught Ralf out. Ralf clearly nowhere near the, getting on the brakes and just reared straight up the back, reminiscent, of course, of Villeneuve hitting Ralf Schumacher last year. And around goes the Ferrari through the air. Luckily, comes down nose first for Ralf, and he has a fairly harmless tag with the wall. And there is Michael coming across the gravel. Coulthard in the lead of the race then. And then just carnage behind as everybody jumps on the brakes, and cold tyres, cold brakes, a lot of inertia, full tanks of fuel. You just can't slow them down. What a...
Yes, indeed, what a mess. And what a mess for us. I mean, 9 cars were out of the race. It's like turn 1. And yeah, we really should have stopped the race and at least let the drivers get back to their spare cars. They still had spare cars in 2002. We would have gotten a better race. There would have been more cars, more drivers in the race. Instead, we got half the grid was out at turn 1. So I was lucky. I was sitting at turn 1. I was sitting like right there where Ralf basically makes contact, just in that grandstand to the left there. So we got to see all that action, but everybody else never got to see all that action, never got to see most of these cars come past. You see the drivers were even running back thinking they've got to stop the race, we can get into the spare cars. But safety cars, as Jean Todt telling Rubens, sorry mate, no, it ain't happening. They safety carred this. So it was a great shame. I mean, yeah, they can keep the race going with a safety car, but what kind of a race were we left with? Kimi had some damage. This was an interesting one. This is the man I came to see. I wanted to see this young man win his first race. Got to see him get his first podium instead, though. So he had to change his wing, but check this out. All right, Kimi, off you go. He's like, no. There's something was stuck in his cockpit, like debris or gravel. So he was like, he didn't really feel like driving a Formula 1 car fast around corners with a big gravel stone sticking up his backside. So they're like, hey, get that out of there. Of all the crazy things you've seen, Nigel Mansell changing his steering wheel in the pit lane. Have you ever seen anything like this? And trust it to be Kimi, you know. Here's what Ralf and Rubens had to say about the crash.
Ralf, that looked like a very nasty moment.
It was. I mean, it was a great start. A shame that I couldn't make use out of it. I mean, Rubens changed the direction twice too much. That was the main problem about it. I mean, he was braking a fraction too early, but that is down to his decision.
Rubens, Ralf said you changed your line several times, but ultimately it was a racing incident. Is that how you saw it?
Well, I think it's if I wasn't there, he wouldn't have made the corner. That's as simple as that.
So how do you see it then? Are you not happy with him?
Well, I just you know, even if he thinks that I move it too many times, I moved back to left probably a centimeter or so. If he wanted to overtake on the outside, he should have moved a lot further, and I didn't get in his way. He was just measuring myself, and then he didn't brake. So it's as simple as that.
Rubens moved to the left a centimeter or so. That's these new funny Brazilian centimeters, obviously. But it was the end of the safety car period, and the restart was about to go, with Coulthard leading the field. Behind him in the Renault is Jarno Trulli, and then our man JPM, Juan Pablo Montoya. We were just doing a video about JPM winning his first ever race at IndyCar at Long Beach. That's on the channel, check it out. Michael Schumacher, 4th place. Kimi had gone all the way back to last, but he hadn't lost all that time because he caught the field back up. And yeah, this track was very slippy and skiddy, and because of the changeable weather conditions, the rain had basically come down on Saturday, washed the track clean. So there's no grip, and now behind the safety car on cold tyres that have maybe lost a tiny bit of tyre pressure. Yeah, when Pablo Montoya was having some trouble getting his Michelins up to temp.
Superb position for a slipstream down the pit straight, and the Ferrari is not particularly quick in a straight line because they're running so much wing. That's why they're fast around it, so much downforce. Michael was nowhere near overtaking.
Yeah, it would be a story of the race. Michael Schumacher, very, very fast in the corners and the twisty bits, but on the straights, he had nothing even for the Renault, and certainly not for the power of the BMW Williams later on. And what was happening is Trulli was kind of holding up Michael. Coulthard was scampering away in the distance, and Montoya was catching up to Michael again. He's got his Michelin tyres back up to temp. Schumacher had no trouble with his Bridgestone tyres. He was flying around the corners, but once they got onto the straight, these cars were just too fast for the Ferrari. They were still using the 2001 Ferrari as well, with a high downforce setup, so a bit tricky. Maybe Michael could have used some DRS here.
Look at Michael Schumacher crawling all over the back of Jarno Trulli, trying to make him make a mistake. Well, there's an old saying, make hay while the sun shines. We haven't seen too much sun this weekend in Melbourne, but David Coulthard is doing just that, pulling out faster sector times all the way. He's now 4.5 seconds clear of Jarno Trulli. Make that 6.6 as Trulli crosses the line. Schumacher not close enough this time, and Coulthard is getting away.
Yeah, Coulthard, he was having a great race. And then Trulli just decided, well, I've had enough of that. Or at least his traction control did. This was a very strange one. I remember just seeing him sort of disappearing around and oh, did he crash? And then you got to kind of look at the screens and stuff and see, like, hey, what the hell happened here? It's an interesting one. It's like as soon as he steps on the throttle to leave the corner, his traction control just gave up. So maybe he had a problem there. It's a very strange accident that when you've got traction control, that's very strange that should
The
happen.
electronics allowed his car to get that far out of shape.
So was that his fault or the car's fault?
You've got to put it down to the car. He should be able to nail it out of there without any difficulty, unless he had a right rear puncture or something like that. Remember, a lot of debris on the racetrack from that first corner incident after the start, and well, disaster for Jarno Trulli. What a shame.
His heart will have sunk, and so will that of Flavio Briatore, the Renault team boss. Trulli in the wall from a very...
But that then released Michael, but also brought the safety car out, because look where Trulli's car was, right in the middle of the road, and it wasn't going anywhere very quickly. So to safely remove that car was obviously going to be another safety car, and that would, unfortunately for DC, that would erase his lead. And so as the race settled down and we cracked open another Foster's, we waited for them to get going again, and Coulthard, he gunned it here and then locked up into the final corners here and ran wide and dropped back to 5th place. And dramatic foreshadowing that was. So Michael led the race, and JPM, a bit more experienced with the restarts from Indy cars. Indy cars always under caution and safety car comes out. So JPM this time had his tyres nicely warmed up to temp, and a great move around the outside of Michael Schumacher. You can see Coulthard he tried to gun it to get away from them, and forgot that there were still a few corners to go, I guess. I don't know. But his McLaren was starting to act up and have gremlins. And Montoya now in front. But Michael, he wasn't going to give up. You know Michael Schumacher, he ain't giving up. This is only lap 11. There was so much drama, which was good. And as you can see there, Coulthard had dropped down to 4th. Kimi was up to 3rd. And no scheduled pit stops had taken place. This was a one-stop race, and they were pitting on around lap 30. So no one had pitted yet, and Kimi had just worked his way up through the field. And unfortunately, we were cracking Foster's every time that happened, that he came past and he had gained some positions, but they didn't show it on TV. They were too busy showing Schumacher trying to get past Trulli, and now they're showing him trying to get past Montoya, and he's got the same problem.
Go defensive, and it cost himself a lot of time. And Michael with a good slipstream, but we saw he couldn't even overtake the Renault down there. So Montoya, I don't think will be an easy car to pass in a straight line.
Did you see him look in his right mirror there? He was saying, "Come on, if you think you're hard enough, come on."
Yeah, but hang on, he's still having a look. Michael has so much more confidence under braking. We've seen Montoya struggle all through this amazingly active race. We're just on the 15th lap. There's been so much action already this afternoon, but a clear Achilles heel at the moment is under braking for the...
Yeah, Montoya actually had some tyre trouble in the practice sessions. Here's Coulthard running wide again, this time at turn 1, entertaining us there at turn 1. But yeah, Montoya's brakes actually caught fire. They actually had to get a fire extinguisher and put him out. And here Montoya made a mistake by going too defensive. And on the exit of turn 1 into turn 2, Schumacher got past. And once he was past, Montoya didn't have the car underneath him to keep up through the twisty bits. And Schumacher just extended the gap. And by the time the next straight came around where Montoya could get that BMW power down, Michael was gone. And yeah, so there it was. As it was most of the early 2000s, there was the red car with the red helmet was out in front, being quite boring.
For the race.
Coulthard was having adventures.
And that is turning into a disaster corner for David Coulthard this afternoon. That is where it sounds like, as he's got two cars bearing down on him, sounds to me as if Coulthard's car had just been an electrical gremlin. Maybe they can adjust it in the pits. But,
Gremlins for the McLaren. That's something that would plague them really right up to like 2008. This whole sort of era of the 2000s. Coulthard's car cutting in and out, and you know, very strange. And yeah, that really McLaren and Mercedes reliability is the reason they didn't win any championships until 2008. Kimi was certainly lost out big time in 2003. So yeah, at this point in the race, Mark Webber, the Aussie, on his debut, had overtaken DC and was up into the points in 5th place. And it sparked a bit of a party in the stands. And yeah, them Fosters were flowing. This was cool. This was at least something to cheer on and keep us entertained, rather than just the same thing we'd been watching in Formula 1 for the last 2 years. Villeneuve, well, poor old Jacques Villeneuve in his BAR. Well, his race came to an end in the wall. And DC, eventually this McLaren just gave up. whatever was wrong. It was an electrical problem, they thought. And he asked for a push. He actually got this going and got it back to the pits. So he didn't have to have another safety car. But that was that. First of the scheduled stops, and Mark Webber was in, and have a look at this. Everything goes perfectly, except they weren't ever putting fuel in that car. The fuel flap was stuck closed.
It was open when he came in the pits. I'm sure I saw it open when he came in the pits. Although it looks like, now they've managed to lever it open. Away they go.
Nice and calm. Nice and calm. Don't stall it. Don't stall it. Away he goes. That should be his one and only fuel stop of the afternoon.
35 seconds. Everyone else came in, and the Williams mechanics got to work on Montoya. Showed Minardi how to do it. They were aiming at around 10-second stops for fuel and tyres to one stop this race, as Kimi Räikkönen sparked to life and set the fastest lap of the race. As Michael Schumacher came into the pits, this was one lap after Montoya. Schumacher covering off, making sure that Montoya wasn't going to undercut him. And, it's, Ferrari in the 2000s, it was...
Debut for McLaren.
It's a relatively short stop, of course, because there's 20 laps or so to the end of the race. So I think it'll be absolutely touch and go whether Räikkönen clears, and no, he's not. Michael is going to retain the lead of the Grand Prix because it was such a short fuel, and the reason is Räikkönen, I believe, is in the pits this time around. Yes, he is. Ted.
My name's Ed, but okay, Ted will do. Kimi came in along with Eddie Irvine, so it was that time of the race. Everyone pits for tyres and fuel at roughly the same time, and Kimi had a bit of came to say hello to us at turn 1. A bit of a cold tyre moment there. Alex Young, this is in the Minardi. He came out of the pits. He had overtaken Webber when Webber had his long pit stop, and now Webber was back in front of him. Both Minardis were running in the pits, as Eddie Irvine was lapping him here. So even the guy in 4th place was... But right behind him is the Toyota of Mika Salo, who would become the enemy.
David, you seem to have all sorts of problems from quite early on in that race.
Yeah, I had a gearbox down selection problem, which caught me out obviously at the start, and then when a few laps in, it threw itself into neutral, and then but later on in the race it jammed in 6th gear.
Were the team trying to fix that from the garage? Was there anything they could do to help you?
Well, they obviously get the telemetry, so you can try and get an understanding of what's going on, and naturally we've got certain defaults, but there was nothing that was able to help that, because I think obviously something's broken inside the box.
Big disappointment, because you must have thought your luck was early on early in that race when you took the lead.
Yeah, obviously I was first of all shocked when I saw Ralf over the back, and naturally your first concern is with him, but knowing that's all okay, then as a race you naturally take the places that you gain through incidents, and I thought things were looking good, and then obviously when I first had the problem and ran wide, I thought this is not looking good, and then I was running clear for a while, and then obviously it became terminal.
Yeah, they're asking DC about assistance from the pits, because this was the first season where they actually had the ability to change settings of the car from the pits. Nowadays they do it all the time, but the 2002, that's where it started. This was the first race they did that. Back to the enemy, Mika Salo. He was the enemy of Mark Webber and the Aussie fans. And Mark was trying hard and running wide, and it's a Minardi against the Toyota here, man. But Mark was doing a good job holding up Mika Salo. With 2 laps to go, they kept us entertained because nothing else really did. And they kept the Fosters flowing. I was screaming for Mark Webber because the promise of the party afterwards sounded really good to me. So I was joining in with the Aussies and having a great day out there, watching this guy and cheering him on. And every time he came past this grandstand, it erupted. It was fantastic. And then it happened. Mika Salo, he got a bit too hot and out onto the marbly stuff, and it went around. And That sparked a massive celebration. Mika would still finish 6th and get a point, but Mark Webber, you know, it wouldn't have really mattered if Mark had been overtaken and finished 6th. He still would have gotten a point for 6th place, but, you know, it was something to do, something to cheer, because the rest of the race was quite boring, really, as was F1 in the early 2000s. It was really boring, because it was just this picture over and over and over again. Ferrari and Schumacher, it was just too good. And you can see with Schumacher crossing the line here, Montoya is miles back, miles. I mean, he thrashed him in 2001's car, the old car. So, yeah, now comes Montoya and Raikkonen in the background there. I stayed to be sprayed, went down to the podium to see Kimi in his first ever podium. That was awesome. I already developed a liking for Kimi Raikkonen, and still to this day I think he's just the coolest F1 driver ever. And there you go, 5th place for Webber. That sparked huge celebrations, especially like in a Minardi, you know. That's Minardi don't often get points, and here this guy in his first race, in his home Grand Prix, in a rubbish car.
Unbelievable to finish my first Grand Prix in the points, and I've got to thank this guy here. He's trying to help this small team get to the front, and we've got to enjoy this moment, but we've got the rest of the season ahead of us as well, and this is a great start for us.
Congratulations, Kimi, on the podium at your first Grand Prix for McLaren.
Yeah, thanks. It was quite an interesting and difficult race for me, because in the first corner there was shunt and I got something under my car and nothing happened when I tried to steer the car, and I was very lucky to get back on the circuit.
After that, how was it for you? Was it a quiet race or a tough one for you?
No, of course it's always tough if you start from the last place and try to get as many places back up as possible. But yeah, the end of the race was some good fight with Montoya, and then I'm quite happy for the results.
It was a great race for you, Juan Pablo. Did you expect to be second at the beginning of this weekend?
I was expecting for a good result. After qualifying, I was really disappointed. I was really pissed off, actually, because the potential was there to be in the front. But luckily enough, paid off. You know, everything's got a reason, and it worked perfectly.
There was a mega fight with Michael, but his car was just too strong, right?
Yeah, like, you know, in a Ferrari here, you know, since the first practice, they've been in a class of their own, and we couldn't really do anything.
Yeah, so, well, that's it for this one, guys. This was a Grand Prix that I went to. I was there. Ralf Schumacher tried to kill us. Hit the like and subscribe button for more, guys. If you liked the video, yeah, hit that like button. It helps the YouTube algorithm do something good for the channel. Like, somehow that's what I hear. And yeah, Red Bull Air Racing here with Ralf Schumacher in a Williams. It was great, and sitting right there, it was amazing to see that. Anyway, guys, that's it for this one. It's Halloween weekend, so happy Halloween and enjoy. And until the next time, you're going to be partying this weekend, right, for Halloween. So I'll say, until the next time I see you, have a good time all the time, and always drink the worm. Cheers.